Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our November 3rd council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Meneghini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Here. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 20th. Any additions or corrections?
No additions or corrections. I make a motion we approve the minutes as they stand.
Second.
Motion made by George, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Meneghini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval manifest 2014-20 in the amount of $655,118.47. George.
Page 1, Coleman Engineering, Oakcrest Drive. This is for that, I'm assuming, Ray, for that land that we're paying on out there? At the end of Oakcrest Drive?
Yep.
Okay. Trish, would you make a note that I want to be exempt from voting on that? $390.50. On this, down on the, in the middle, right in the middle of the page, Cyber Zone, November, is this a monthly payment that we make on there?
Yeah.
Ray or Mary or Tricia?
Yeah, that's a maintenance agreement that we put together with them.
Do we get a benefit out of this?
Yeah, that's something I work with him on a monthly basis.
Okay, so it's
It's for the computer support in the office.
Yeah, what we do is we go back and forth. You know, we discuss the hours that are spent rather than getting billed, or you see, you know, $30 bill and a $20 bill and a $70 bill. What we do is we.
my question, Ray, are we getting our money for it?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, that was all. Right down the end, bottom, installation equipment of police car at $8,200. Was that figured in the price of the new police car?
Yes, that was part of the grant funding that we got for it.
Was?
They'll cover it.
Okay. And I just talked to Mary about this on the second page. Right up on the top, that CIC Benefit Consulting Group. I must have missed it, but she says it's on here monthly. I've never seen it before. Mary, would you, the rest of the council, do you have any questions about it? Otherwise, I ask Mary if she'd mind explaining it.
That's the third-party company that we use with employee benefits, because we self-insure part of the deductible, and that's what that's for. And it's in different departments based on which employee it's for.
I see it's in a number of places here, Mary. That's why I was wondering. Sorry, I never noticed it before. Okay, down on the bottom of the second page at 4 5 gallons, 2-part 4 epoxy for Marion Park for $800. Are we doing outfits out at Marion Park with these?
The bathrooms.
Bathrooms?
Bathrooms, yeah.
Okay. Is that a 2-part mix, Ray, do you have, or Joe isn't here, Ray? He
Yeah,
doesn't have
Joe went, he talked with Terrazzo to find out what would be the best long-term solution for those floors, and this is the product that they said would hold up the best. So
Okay.
I don't know if it's in 2 parts or not, but I know it's an epoxy, and I know it has grit in it.
I got a mixture that I had painted my basement floor, and it was $100 a gallon. But it was a 2-part mixture, and I was just wondering if this was kind of similar to that or not. And down major streets, right, the 12th Avenue Railroad Crossing culvert, where is that at, Ray? Culvert.
That's 12th Avenue Railroad culvert. They did they fixed, I believe that the railroad
Okay,
crossing over by Belgian Town Road, the
Okay.
12th comes in, I believe that they did an upgrade to that, and part of their upgrade, they put in a culvert in it for us, so I think that's just for the material
okay.
for the culvert.
I was just kind of curious. I
believe it's over there.
I'm wondering where 12th Avenue is, where we would have put a culvert in any place, and I didn't. No problem.
Well, 12th comes across by Ace's house, you know, it comes down and through. So they probably, when it got over the hill, that's where the culvert
Okay.
is. Is that, do you have any idea, Mary? That's, okay. I'll check on it though and
Just-
let you know. I think that's what they did.
And the next page, right down the bottom, how many more bills do we have on that safe route to school, Mary?
I believe that
This is
is
final
gonna be the
payment?
final rate.
Well, it was in the report. Let's see. I mean, we had, if not the final, there's maybe a small charge, but it should be almost done.
I don't believe the 437 is included in that number that I gave you on that report either. 'Cause
Oh, what was on here?
Yeah.
Then I think that's final.
I think this is
Okay.
final, 'cause
So I think
it's
that's
almost up
final.
to the 35.
Yeah. It won't go over the 35, but I think they said they were gonna hit the 35.
And, okay, that's all on that page. The following page, the last item down on the bottom. This, closing cost for Jay Stevens. What is this about, or that about? The
That
last,
was, what that was, George, is we reimbursed the Stearns. There was a payment made in the closing cost on a utility bill that then got paid, so we reimbursed them.
okay. Okay. And I see we had, next page, we had a very nice, sale on our power, and actually, we only ended up paying $3,000 for power for this coming month, which is exceptionally nice. The following page, Joe isn't here either. I had questions about that $500 payments right in a row for a relay test switch. If maybe Joe might be able to answer that for us on the next deal. Okay, the following page, I don't have my numbers here. Page 7, the first item right up on top of the sheet, repair parts for lightning. Is this covered by insurance, Mr. Anderson? At $8,000?
As a lightning claim, it would be all but $1,000, I believe so, right, Trish? Yeah.
Yes,
Would be?
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
there will be the $1,000 deductible, but everything above that.
okay, fine. And then right down on the bottom, Need and Hunt, $5,000. I'm assuming that this is on this wastewater and water project that we got coming up,
Yes.
okay? Are these all marked down? I'm sure they are, Mary, so we can, like I had mentioned before, to come up with a final figure?
It's in your packet.
It's in the, there's
It's
in the
in your
executive,
packet. I gave you the update.
in the
Okay.
executive
So-
memo.
There's quite a bit more to go, George, because you're only about halfway
Okay,
through.
well, as long as, you know,
Yeah.
they're all marked so we can get,
Yep.
like I said, it would be nice if we had a idea of what the project cost
Yeah,
at
it's
the
in,
beginning, and then to find out, you know, where
In
we're
the,
coming
in the
from.
executive memo in the sheet, it breaks it down for the 3 projects we have with them, how much is spent so far and how much is
Yeah,
left.
that's wonderful.
I gave you the total budget too, so that you can see where we're at.
Okay, following page 8, right in the middle of the page, ZNR for that $300 for that pump. That wasn't, did we okay that bill here maybe within the last couple of months? Or did that motor go to heck again? Can any of you recall?
I'll have to check on that, George. I don't know.
It seems to me like within the last month or so, either this was brought up.
I feel the same way. I think they had another problem. They brought him back in to fix it. It was when we had that heavy rain. There was some concern about the lake level rising, but they had brought them in to work on the pump. But Joe will have more information.
Yeah. Okay, that's it.
Chris?
Back on the first page, the Coleman Engineering Old Crest Drive, is this gonna be a continuing, project with Coleman Engineering then, or just a one-time thing?
No, it's not a continuous project. We just needed some information in order to try and look at what we're gonna do with with those properties.
So getting into lot splitting and,
Well, a utility, we were looking at some of the utility possibilities out there. And a road,
okay.
getting some numbers on what road would look like.
George caught most of my other ones. I had one more on electric, for Joe. Page 6, Schweitzer Engineering, a current differential voltage relay for $7,000. Was that a budgeted item or something that,
I'll have to get back to you.
and George got the rest? So.
That might have the same thing. Chris is the one down
Dr. Hayes.
below.
No question.
Lee?
Yeah, I got, George hit most of them there. On the first page, I see we paid Northern Landscaping to cut grass at 3 different places, obviously because of the issues with long grass and
Correct.
those people not cutting them. Now, this is going on their tax bill, isn't it?
If they don't pay,
The
correct.
owner of the property.
Correct,
Will
if they
go on
don't
their
pay.
tax bills, okay. How are we doing on that this year? Have we had a lot of issues with that, and have we been getting paid?
I think we're getting paid. I don't think we get a lot of issues with it.
At this time, I think there's only one that's left out there, and the lady said she was gonna pay it before it went on her taxes.
Okay. And one other thing here. Where'd it go? Last page, page 6, I'm sorry, page 6. Plant monitoring services, We Energies, I thought we were all done with We.
Oh,
$2,937.
no, we still have agreements with them on the dam for monitoring because of the Wilderness Shores Agreement. So they still have, they're passing water and then they tell
Okay.
us what, so,
Is this a quarterly issue then, or is that?
Yeah.
That is quarterly? Okay, that's all I have then.
I have no questions. Does anyone from the audience have any questions on the manifest? Okay. Looking at that, I need a motion to approve the manifest.
Make a motion, we approve manifest 2014-20 in the amount of $655,118.47.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or any agenda item? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. If not, there'll be a further time for comment on any subject at the end of the meeting. Okay, seeing none. This evening, we have 3 items on appointments and presentations. The first item is the Vulcan Middle School High School Adventures Isle Royal Trip presentation. Who's going to start? Okay, we've got Mr. Kangas here from the school who's going to start their presentation. Good evening. Could you come up to the podium so the mic can pick you up? Well, it's more the mic than anything, so people can hear it.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Kangas. I'm a teacher at Norway Vulcan Area Schools. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about a worthwhile educational experience that we went on this past September. Myself, Katie Dahlman, Anita Rietveld, and Joe Rodriguez, along with 23 7th grade students and 2 8th grade mentor students, traveled to Isle Royal National Park to take part in the 3rd annual Isle Royal Education Program, sponsored primarily through Bill Harris and Renewable World Energies. This was the largest group of students that we have taken on this trip. I am pleased to say that they conducted themselves in a manner that we can all be proud of. And despite some challenging weather that altered our plans, everyone made it home safe and sound. I believe the students left the island not only more appreciative of nature in general, but also feeling fortunate to have had this opportunity to learn outside of the classroom. The students learned about the value of the National Park Service, renewable energy, resourcefulness, ecosystems, participated in science lessons, and learned a lot about self-responsibility. They were required to do additional work to earn the right to go on this trip and had to complete all the required homework they missed while being gone. And they were required to do more additional work when they returned. Tonight, we will have 4 girls that will share a short PowerPoint presentation on the trip. After this, those 4 girls, along with a few of the other students that went on the trip, will answer any questions. Following that, we have a short little video that we'll present. Thank you.
Me, Mary Slagle, Callie Paul, Danae Anderson, and Alexis Lotari are going to talk about the requirements to go on the Isle Royal trip, time frame, animals, ferries, food rules, nature, and what we did while we were there, and why to continue Iowa. We all went on the Irish trip this fall. It was a blast learning about the nature and the island's history. Like, for example, we went to the ranger station and
No questions.
No questions, all right.
These students, they learn more than what they take from a book. They learn teamwork and cooperation. They not only learn facts, but understand the concepts related to energy, science, math, history, geology, and how they apply to their present-day lives. Students understand the how and the why. They are excited about what they learn. They will remember these things and teach them to others for a lifetime. Remember the lighthouse we passed by on the way in? Yeah, they have one of these in that lighthouse. The wind there is blowing 40 right now. No wonder there's 14-foot waves out there today. Yeah, see? We're in the protected space here. They'll remember these things and teach them to others for a lifetime. The Iowa Education Program gives an opportunity for the next generation to make a difference.
If you can get us, get Tricia a copy of the video, we'll run it on Channel 7.
Okay.
I don't know if the school's channel can run it, because they might prefer to run it there. But we can run videos on Channel 7. so.
Okay, so, that'd be great. We'd just like to thank you for letting us come and present. One of the requirements that they had to do, the extra requirements, it's very difficult to get in front of a bunch of people and speak, so we know that this really meant a lot to them, that they had to do this in order to go on this trip, and we appreciate you allowing us to come here and present.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming up and presenting this to us. I hope everybody enjoyed their time on the trip. It looked like you guys had a good time on the trip. I don't really have any other comments, but I'd just like to thank you for coming up and presenting to us tonight. Okay. Next on the agenda, we have the appointment, Central Landfill Authority appointment. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular board meets once a year, basically, to deal with the closure of, remember, the old central landfill? The authority is put together by the municipalities to manage the 40-year basic timeframe that we need to manage that facility. Each municipality is required to appoint a representative for 2-year terms. So we're asking council to choose a representative. I've been that representative. Someone else would choose to be a representative, you can so choose, but if not, appoint me for another 2 years.
Is anyone on the
Make a
council?
motion, we vote, or appoint Mr. Anderson, representative for the next 2 years.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Is this a yearly thing, Ray, or is it like a 2-year term for you?
2 year,
2 year.
yeah, 2 years.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry. I'll support that.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menachini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Next, we have our fiscal year 2013-14 City of Norway Audit and Management Letter presentation. We have Mr. Scott Kenny here, who did perform our audit again this year, and he has got a presentation on the audit. He will present that this time. Scott, I don't know if you can present from the podium? Yes, I will. Okay, so,
You want the lights down, Scott? Again? Hard to see.
That's up to you guys.
How's that?
Can you see now?
Oh, yeah, I can see. I've got copies of the slides. First, I'd like to thank the council for engaging me to perform the annual audit here for the City of Norway for the year ended June 30th, 2014. Things went very well as far as the audit goes this year, and again, I prepared slides as I have in the past to try and summarize what's in the between 80 and 90 pages of paper that are bound within that book, and the letters that are also attached with that. The page numbers that I've got on here allude to the page numbers that are within the bound book. On page 4, you'll find my audit opinion. It's a letter. And the city, again, received an unmodified opinion. That unmodified opinion is the highest level of opinion that we as a CPA can render. The city has received that almost every year that I've been doing the audit, and this year was no exception to that. One thing that's different this year in your report is, starting on page 7, there's a series of pages called the Management Discussion and Analysis. And that's what they are. They're management's discussion of the financial statements, a brief look into the future, but really more a concentration on what's happened looking backwards. So that's kind of a synopsis written by the management here as to the proceedings during the past year.
that would be equivalent to the management statement on a corporate audit?
Yes, it would be, yes, that's correct. Yeah, different, because we're using the governmental accounting standards instead of the financial accounting standards. It's just referred to a little bit different, but it's the same document, yes. The general fund operations for the year, and this is on page 17. The revenue is here on the first bar. You can see it's about $2.5 million. That's pretty consistent with where the city was a year ago. We did expend less money actually this year. You can see it's about not quite $2.1 million. We did have transfers out to various funds, which gave us a net gain of about $130,000 for the year. So we actually saw growth in our fund balance this year in our general fund, which is certainly good. This is a look at our fund balance over time. This slide you won't see. You'll see the amount of the final number here being about $520,000 within the book, but you won't see this comparison over years. And the reason I include that is I think it's important for the council to know trend-wise where you're at, especially in your general fund or in what's referred to as major funds by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. The DDA, which is also a major fund, you can see it really ran at a break even for the year. Actually, it's got about less than a $200 loss for the year, but essentially it's break even when you look at the fact that it took in $250,000 in between the transfers out, the transfers out there primarily are debt payments. That is true also in the general fund. So it's not like we're just taking money out of there and using it for something that's unrelated. What we're doing with that is actually servicing debt. Again, the trend over time, you can see that one goes down slightly. That is not something, in my opinion, to be alarmed about. the idea of the DDA is not to continue to accumulate funds, it's to spend money to improve your downtown development district. And the city has actually done a very commendable job of that over the years. It has slid backwards slightly, but that amount will go up and down, and you can see from this year to last year, it's almost an identical number. The non-major funds, they're aggregated on page 17 of the financial statements, but if you go back to page 61, you can look at them individually. The first one is the major streets. Major streets this year, we actually went from almost a nil for fund balance, raising up actually to about $45,000. While that certainly is a good trend, $45,000 in your street funds, can't do a whole lot with $45,000, frankly. You patch some holes and whatnot, but at least it went in the correct direction. As is also the case with the local street fund. You can see that we ended up the year there with about $11,000 or $12,000. We had a difficult winter. There's no secret to that, and I'm going to be talking about that again further in just a couple of minutes in the water fund. Fire protection, you can see that has been a very consistent performer as far as the numbers go within the fire protection fund itself. The museum, we did have the one year that was very much of an anomaly because we had a very large gift that had come in back in 2011. But since then, we've been running right at about $45,000, indicating we're taking in and expending pretty much the same amount of money. Debt service, you'll see there's no numbers at all there. Debt service is a fund where all we do is transfer money in. We take all of the money that's received in there and we pay debt with it. If there's not debt to pay, we wouldn't transfer the money into the fund. So that's the sole purpose of the debt service fund. So there is no fund balance there. It's maintained within the other funds. Whoops. Capital projects. You can see the trend line there is going down. End of the year with a very small fund balance. Again, it depends on what you have going on at the time. We were kind of in between some projects. We were just at the very, very beginning of the Safe Routes to School project at the end of the fiscal year, which was June 30th. It really kicked off after the end of your fiscal year. We did some small amounts of expenditures, but it was just that, very small. The TV fund, we're getting into your business type funds now. You can see that was on a very ugly trend. This year, that turned itself around, and you can see we bounced back up. I talked at some length about the TV fund last year, and I'm certainly pleased to see that trend reverse itself, and obviously if that continues, we should be almost break even as far as unrestricted net position goes at the end of the current fiscal year, but we did some rate adjustments. We've taken a look at expenses, and our projects in there are more or less completed. So the fund has really stabilized from where it had been, and it did perform pretty well. And you can see the details of that on page 19 of the bound book. The electric utility continues to be the star here. That's no secret, I don't think, to anyone sitting here. The unrestricted fund balance is approaching $2 million, and we had transferred out a fair amount of money from the fund during the year again. Certainly not in excess of what we're allowed to with the bond covenants that we have, but we did continue to use the funds from the electric fund to assist in other pieces of the operations of the city. The golf course, the trend of the golf course continues to go in the wrong direction. Don't have any great answers here. I spent a substantial amount of time talking about the golf course over the past several years. Not really a whole lot new to say, with the exception of the fact that right after, actually in your between the year end and today, we've paid off the debt that was the original bond that was on the clubhouse. Some of that money is still owed. We have a payment that's owed from the Golf Commission to the city, but that debt is gone. However, I don't look at that trend, even with that happening, turning itself around. I know that Manager Anderson has worked at length with trying to come up with some answers to try and balance the operations between the Oak Crest Golf Club and the Golf Fund of the city. And it's a very difficult fund. There's less play than there was, and it's really because of the amount of fixed costs that you have, with there being less play on the course, and this has been a trend over obviously the last several years, that it's continued to go backwards. We're almost to the point of unrestricted net position of nearly $150,000. So that trend continues to go in the wrong direction. One thing that I did mention to the management when I was here is we're going to be in a position, if we're going to continue to operate the fund, and I presume that we are, of having to do some general fund commitments to that, and we may want to consider whether we want to continue to handle that fund as an enterprise fund, because truly the definition of an enterprise fund is that it's going to show a profit. It's going to be run just like a for-profit business, and if we're not making money, it doesn't really make sense to continue to do that. And I'm sure that Mary and Ray will have some recommendations coming forward to you if they do want to make a change on that, but it's something that we had talked about and should be considered. The water utility, you can see that the water utility had performed pretty consistently. We were running between $150,000 and $200,000, and we kind of dropped off this year. That's really attributable, in my eyes, to two things. First of all, and I'm not particularly concerned about this, and the reason for that is part of the expenditures this year, we were paying for a debt that we had for some energy improvements that we had done about 10 years ago, and that was $42,000 of expenditures in that fund. Right after the end of the fiscal year, that debt was extinguished. And we did have the winter last year. We had freeze-ups, we had about $100,000 in additional costs, and that doesn't include the costs of putting people on let run. You have, first of all, you're not capturing revenue if you put people on let run, because you're not going to bill them for it, you're doing it as a convenience, and you're incurring additional costs because you're running pumps and what have you. So while we did see a major downstroke here, that is not something that I'm particularly concerned about. I'm not looking at, sometimes if we would be looking at this situation, I'd be telling you, look at your rates. I think that this situation, assuming we don't have another winter like we did last year, maybe that's a bad assumption on my part, but I'll make it for right now, I just think that you really don't need to do anything as far as an adjustment goes with your rates within the fund. Sewer fund, that continues to be going the wrong direction. We actually ended up borrowing some money because we had also some grant money to get that through WPPI, but we continue to have our planning costs for really the two phases of the project as far as the wastewater plant goes, or the plant and the system goes, and those costs are not capitalizable at this point in time. They're treated as professional services. That's what the accounting rules say we have to do until such time as we have a closing on the bonds, and then we'll be able to go back and capitalize those, and we'll recapture a lot of this. So the downstroke that we see here is really because we're at the, shouldn't say the beginning, we're in the middle, how's that, of planning for the forthcoming projects. In talking with the manager during the audit, he's indicated to me that phase one, it looks like, is probably going to kick off sometime in the spring. That means that and if we get that funded, sometime probably by the end of August anyway, we'll be able to go back and capitalize those costs, and we're gonna see substantially less operating costs because that will then become part of the cost of the project and be depreciated out over the term of the project. Or the term of the asset, I'm sorry.
If we're looking at possibly even into August, then we're gonna show another big hit in the next audit, because that's after the end of the next current fiscal.
Not necessarily, because as long as you do your close, I can take those costs, I can look into the future and back it up, so I can capitalize those costs at year end, as long as we have a definitive event that's occurred.
Okay.
That being the closing. So it doesn't have to happen by June 30th, but it's probably gonna have to happen, probably realistically by the end of August anyway, I would say.
Significant event post-closing prior to sale.
Exactly. Just a quick summary of the pages 17 through 20 as far as the audit goes. Financial performance in the various funds. General fund, we saw a nice increase. Downtown development, no change. The other governmental or the non-major governmental funds, we did see an increase, actually a pretty nice increase. TV, internet, and telephone, we did see an increase in the fund balance there. Electric continues, as I stated, to be the star here for the city. The golf course went backwards, as did the water and the sewer funds. We did see an increase in the underfunding on our pension plan, and I've talked about the pension plan obligation over the past several years. Again, the MERS plan performed poorly, and that's my look at it from an investment perspective. If you look at what's happened in the marketplace during the last year, during the year that was done actuarially, the rest of the market performed very well, well into the double digits. MERS performed at about 6%. Their long-term projection is 8. They haven't seen 8 since I can remember, well before 2008. I know that Manager Anderson and I have had the discussion. He has spoken with them directly, along with some of the legislators and whatnot, about making some changes, and that has fallen on deaf ears, unfortunately. But that's what we have there. So they continue to throw numbers out there for us to fund at. This past year was the city's contribution was about $607,000. That number actually goes in the forthcoming year, in the year beginning in July of 15, to $795,000. So that is a very large number for the city, and that's across all of the funds. So that's not just the general fund number, but the reason that I had indicated on the end of here, this GASB 68, it looks pretty inane there. GASB 68 says that next year, the debt that we've got as far as the underfunding is going to end up on your financial statements. Right now, the accounting rules, as of this book that you have here, the accounting rules say we don't include the debt for the pension plan. It never made any sense to me, but the accounting rules are the accounting rules. They have now changed that with GASB 68, which becomes effective for the year that we're in right now. So we're going to be looking at about a $9 million hit to our long-term fund balance, or long-term net assets, or net position that we've got out there. So when you look at comparatively this year to next year, and you see this fall off, and I'll be highlighting this when I do next year's audit, but you're going to see just this huge drop, $9 million, because we're going to be booking that liability now where we have not done that in the past.
With that underfunding, that amount of that increase, because you said it goes up quite a bit,
Yes.
is that related to us closing the electric, where that payment is going to increase?
That is not, actually, that will help that in the long run.
Well, yeah, but
That is not related to that. That is not reflected in the actuarial report. That's strictly based on the performance of the fund, of the MERS pension plan itself, and it does not include that. That will be reflected in the future, but it is not at this
Well, I
point.
didn't know because the amount we have to pay to close that goes up every year
Yes, it
for
does.
a number of
Yep.
years.
Yeah, exactly. And again, with the investment performance that's there at 6%, I mean, you know, if we, in our 401Ks and whatnot, if somebody had performed at 6% last year, we'd probably be looking for somebody new to do investing for us. But it is what it is. Overall, we saw a net decrease of $621,000. But I want to point out one thing that's there. That includes about $900,000 of depreciation. So if you take out the non-cash piece of that, we actually saw an increase in there of about $300,000. Not a huge number, but certainly good. But when you look at that $621,000, I just wanted to point that out because that's a number you'll see that's included in here, and that does include the depreciation of, for the, whoops. In the letters, there's two letters that are attached to the audit report, or not attached, they're loose, either in the front or the back, I don't recall where I put them. The one that looks like this, it doesn't say significant audit findings. The other one, it's got some bold on the first page. Material weaknesses, there were none, which is a good thing. There were no significant deficiencies, which is also good. And there are no material non-compliance findings. All three of those things are good. If you had those things, we'd be talking about them. I'm required to talk about those, and we did not have those. As I said, the audit went well this year, so we did not see those things. There were some things that we call other matters for consideration, though, that I just wanted to highlight to the City Council. The first is personal property tax delinquency. I think most of us are aware of the fact that personal property taxes, by and large, are going away. And because of the vote that happened this past August, the city has a large amount of personal property taxes that are delinquent, that have just been sitting on the books for years and years and years in some cases. Much of it predates the current management, some of it does not. But there is a legal process that needs to go through in order to be able to write these off. You just can't say, we're not going to collect them and let's just take them off the books. You have to go through a circuit court process for that. This is a repeat comment, by the way, from last year. As I stated, some of them are very aged. They have been allowed for. In other words, the write-off of these is not going to have any impact, not positive and not detrimental, on your financial statements. As I stated, there's a legal process for the removal, and the treasurer and your legal counsel will need to get approval. You got to get your approval first, and then needs to get the approval of the circuit court in order to remove those from the actual tax roll itself. Management has stated that this will be pursued, and it'll get accomplished. With that, and I see a lot of this getting cleaned up now, particularly in light of the fact that we no longer have most of the personal property taxes. There are some that are there, but they're very large, particularly as they would go to utilities, gas pipelines, phone companies, those kind of things. The second comment, utility accounts receivable in some cases are severely delinquent. Talked about this one also last year. We had made a change actually a year ago of changing the allowance from, we had historically run that at about 4%. We changed it to 7.5%. Not necessarily married to that number, but I think that it's, we're required to state your receivables at net realizable value. And because of the amount that you have out there in the over 180-day category, we need to make sure there's adequate allowance so they're not overstated. Collection agencies have been tried by the city in the past. We have done some placing onto tax bills of these. I recommend that you continue to do that, do it more aggressively. You have not done that consistently. And you need to take a look at what your policy and your procedure is for that. Put that in place and then just follow what the policy is. And it takes the staff off the hook. I mean, if you guys, the council state that more than 90 days delinquent, automatically we're going to put it on the bill, then it goes on the bill. You can do it with a size. The one big issue that's out there is your rental properties. And you're going to hear it from your landlords because the bill goes on the real property tax bill. They're going to say they didn't incur the cost, their renters did. But they're the ones that are making money on that property, and they are responsible for that. So it's something that you as council members are going to hear about if you decide that that's something you're going to do. I don't see that it's in everyone else's, in the non-home or non-rental owners' best interest to subsidize the folks that have rental property, and that's really what you're asking them to do.
We've been working with our utility billing committee over the last several months to
Yeah.
work out what our policy is going to be.
Yeah,
Shortly, it should be coming before council with what we've got worked out.
yeah,
I would say within the next couple month or two would be my guess.
okay.
So that's, I believe, where we are.
Okay, good. The one other thing that you're going to need to look at with this, when I did my exit conference with the manager and the treasurer, we talked a little bit about evaluating your staffing, both on a short-term and a long-term basis, to make sure that you've got adequate time allowed within your office to, with the staff there, to be able to follow up on these things. You've got a real complex electric billing system, and you are running 4 utilities, totaling approximately $9 million a year in billings. You want to make sure that things get handled appropriately from a control perspective, and making sure that those delinquencies get cleaned up is something that I wanted to highlight to this council. Excuse me. The final item that I've got in a letter of comments and recommendations talks about the fire department. And the fire department did some fundraising this past year. The expenses and the revenues, the detail of those did not end up on the city's books. They were run through a separate corporation that the fire department had because they ran on a license that actually is for the fire department, which is a department of the city. That's actually a city fundraising activity. Those needed to be accounted for. We subsequently went back and I was able to satisfy myself that we did not have any substantial shortages or those that type of thing. The fire department, I believe a year or maybe a little more than that, year ago, set up a separate corporation, completely separate of the city, for them to put their dues in so that they can do whatever they choose to with that money. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. The issue that I have is that we're doing this in the name of the city, so if it's in the name of the Norway Fire Department, that's the city. If it's in the name of whatever the name of the separate corporation is, that's separate. But anything that happens, just like utility billing or payroll or anything else, if it's to be city control, all of the money needs to be handled by the treasurer. The funds need to be expended through your manifest process that you have. That works very well here. So I wanted to highlight that in talking with the management. Here they have stated that, well, the big thing that the corporation's waiting on, they've done the step of getting this separate corporation set up through the state of Michigan. Not a problem. The piece that hasn't happened is they need to get a letter of approval from the Internal Revenue Service stating that they're a nonprofit organization. They have not taken that step, and there's some cost that's involved with that. When I met with the manager and the treasurer, they had stated that the city is certainly willing to assist them in any way that they can to make that happen, but at this point in time, it hadn't occurred, and we don't want, I'm not in a position where I want to not have the firemen do fundraising. I think it's certainly critical and helps keep the community involved in the department itself, but we need to do things legally as well. Legal comes first. That pretty well summarizes what I see as the highlights contained within the audit report, the bound book that's there, as well as the letter of comments and recommendations. If any of the council or anyone has any questions for me, I'd be happy to try and handle those. Excuse me.
I've been involved with the council quite a few years, and it sees the account receivables comes up every year for the last 10 years. It's your top topic all the time. And I mean, I'm not looking to place any blame on anybody, but I think at the end of your presentation, I think the council wholeheartedly agrees that these accounts got to be turned over and put on taxes. And I think it's pretty much every year it comes to the same, you know, we got to get these off the books and get put on the taxes of people, but it seems like it never happens. I mean, is there something that we can do here to help this process along?
This year's gonna be the year where we're gonna get it done, because the utility billing committee has met a couple of times to go over the plan. Like I said, I figure within a month, maybe two, you'll see a plan to put them on. That'll include collecting the overdue and putting them on the taxes, and the whole plan will be laid out before the council.
Well,
This is I know it has been, well, it has been, but this is the closest. This is the closest we've been.
Because, I mean, like I said, as long as I've been involved in the council, I think every year it's, you know, it's brought up and it just sits there, and next year it comes up again.
This really is the closest we've been to having it ready to go.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
George, just also so that you're aware of it, we've seen a rollover of personnel within the office, some retirements and what have you. And part of that, I think, is as the new folks have come on board and learned, and we did some staff reductions, and I think we've built back up to some degree, and that's why I encouraged you, take a look at that staffing, and I would hope that that's something that the utility billing committee is taking a look at, because I think that's part of that as well. We don't just want to, I mean, frankly, I would agree with what you're saying, is if they get to a certain point, they meet a criteria, you put them on the tax bill. You know, and whatever happens from a fallout perspective, like I said, your renters are going to be really unhappy with that. And there are a couple of situations where you may be prohibited from doing that, because there's some steps that folks can take to avoid that, but and that process is something that you know, just keep an eye on what's happening from a legal perspective as well as you head through that.
Okay.
The workaround that we're looking at for that is a higher deposit on, if those affidavits are filed, we have a higher deposit for that particular property, and having a much quicker trigger on the shut-off.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what we're looking at right
Well,
now.
you're limited on that trigger by state law, so.
Right,
yeah.
but right now, we at times go beyond the state
Yes,
law.
yeah,
We're
without question.
gonna hold right
Yep.
to the state law that says, okay, this is the day, it's getting shut off. That's currently what we've been looking at and discussing as our plan.
Sure.
Also, you touched on it, the fire department. I think the council gotta agree that, you know, we gotta do and push as much as we can to have that fire department get their papers in order. That's a very valuable asset for the city. All the stuff, all the money that they raise and self-supporting and everything. I agree 100%, Scott. We gotta make sure they got clear lanes to work with to get that money, to get that money and get it safely and legally the right way. So we gotta light a fire, Jeremy, under the fire department, whoever.
Well, in talking
get
with
involved
them, when I was here and we were talking about the the situations that I had come across as part of the audit, I don't see them as being adversarial in this. I think that they would want to do that. They're going to be concerned about the fact that it's going to cost them somewhere between $400 to $1,000 to get a determination letter from the Internal Revenue Service. But you know what? That's what you have to do, so do it. You know, I mean, that's a cost that they're going to need to incur in order to complete that circle. So don't wait, because the approval process, I had done one for one of my clients not too long ago, and it's a 14-month approval. So it doesn't, you don't send it in and you get it back next week. You send it in and you wait.
They could fundraise for that.
Pardon me?
They could fundraise for that money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Ray, are we looking to get bids out possibly this year? So we, you had mentioned, or I don't know if it was Scott, or you had mentioned that we're looking to start on that water sewer project this coming summer, possibly by August.
Well, we're looking at making sure all of our paperwork is in order so that we can go out for bids this winter. You know, and closing, you know, August seems long to me. I think, you know, if we can get this out this winter, I was hoping this spring, actually.
Can I ask a question or a favor, Mr. Anderson?
Sure.
Can we put deadlines on this stuff? It's, it seems like we.
George,
yeah,
I
we're gonna
appreciate,
do it,
George,
we're gonna do it,
I,
and it just
George,
gets
I
put off.
appreciate that. But in this case, I guess I'm gonna push back a little. We started this process in 2006.
No, I know.
I'm still working with Norway Township to get the agreements. I'm working with rural development out of Gladstone. I mean, we had a little hiccup with some underground tanks. That held us up 2 months. You know, so to put deadlines on it,
Okay.
I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but this one has been just, I had hair when this started. I mean, it has really been, this has been one of those.
I was actually,
triggering for
during
me. I mean,
comments, I was
it's
gonna
terrible.
question some of this deadlines and that too. Because when we were doing budget, we were talking bidding phase 2 about right now. We haven't even bid phase 1 yet. Phase 2 is what, a year out?
Right.
2 years out? And so, that was during budget, phase 2 is supposed to be bid right now.
Yeah, I mean, we just one thing after another, trying to get the legal documents, paperwork, you know, I mean, it's just, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me. I wanted to have this started 2 years ago, in fact, you know, and it's just been dragging, and I can appreciate that, but, you know, I can set targets. My target is to have this thing, you know, try to do a closing in the spring, like late spring, you know, is my target.
Okay,
And so,
fine.
but I can give you what I can do,
As
though,
long as
is,
we get high priority on it, that's all I can ask. And,
you know, we can lay out those items that I'm ticking off to try and get to that point. You know, this agreement, like I said, this agreement with the township is very close, but I'm kind of on their schedule. I mean, I'm kind of pushing, but I'm, you know, that one's kind of drug a little bit, and, you know, so, but what I'll do is I'll try to lay those timeline items out, and, you know, if it's really in series, this happens and this happens and this happens, then we're in good shape.
That's all I have, Scott.
Yeah.
Scott, I was gonna ask you on the general fund balance history.
Yes.
It kind of up 1 year, down 1 year. Is there anything attributable to that? Is it like, we get grant money 1 year, spend it the next? Or is there?
It wouldn't be
just-
grant
is it
money
just-
in and out in 1 year. There would be, capital is probably the primary driving factor there. If you go out and you buy a plow truck, for instance, it might be $250,000 expenditure. Buy a fire truck, you know, those kind of things. You see your expenditures go up. Your revenues in there are fairly consistent. It's your expenditures that actually fluctuate.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on the audit? Doc? Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the public have any questions on the audit?
I just wondered, how are you going to work the retirement fund when, you know, it's so deficient now? How are you going to, without any additional income, how are you going to fund that fund?
With part of it, we've made changes in the electric fund where we're going to be paying off the MERS pension. and switching to a different program entirely. That will help it in the long run. In the short run, there's going to be costs. There are other options we're looking at. A lot of that, though, is going to be through contract negotiations. And when those come up, we look at what options are available then. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Okay. We'll get into our communications then this evening. We have 2 items. The first one is Resolution 2014-32, acceptance of the fiscal year 2013-14 audit report and management letter. Scott has just presented it to us. We've asked questions. Unless there's any other question or comment now, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2014-32 for the fiscal year of 2013-14 audit report.
Second.
Motion made by George, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2014-33. It's opposition of the rate increase due to the cost of allocation plan for the operation of the Presque Isle Power Plant. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was approached middle of last week by other members of the county community to put together, or work with them to put together a supporting resolution that we can send off to everybody we can think of, both state and federal, mostly federal, that deals with this impending increase that's coming on the energy costs across the UP. Last week, and as mentioned in my memo, I went to the Energy Summit last Tuesday, and it really wasn't because I've been involved, especially through the MMEA, Michigan Municipal Electric Association, as a board member. We've been talking about this for the better part of a year or plus, seeing this coming, and so a lot of the details I've already been talking about. But I think it was really good for everybody else who may have not been really engaged until, say, this last month or two, when it was really calculated on what it's going to be in an individual's pocketbook. Then the urgency really all of a sudden got heightened. But one of the things that I wanted to impress upon council in considering this resolution is that the city of Norway utility customers, electric utility customers, because of our relationship, our membership of WPPI, because of our hydro, and because of some very, I think, some very prudent decisions by councils in the past and current on how we structure our utility, our anticipated increase in this issue is going to be between 1% and 3%. They anticipate 1% on just the SSR payment. This is the PIP issue, the Presque Isle issue. Maybe another 2% on the standard cost issues that we might normally see. But so they're looking at somewhere between 1% and 3%. So when you just at the surface you look at it and you say, why do we want to get involved? It looks like we're not going to get hurt. Well, just remember, the hospital is going to get hurt. Other areas that we go around the UP are going to get hurt. The economic development on a flyover basis, and I'd call it flyover because if you're not from here, you're going to look at the region and not the city of Norway, and so we're going to be hurt in that way. So I think there is a devastating effect, and I tried to lay out in the memo some of the issues, some of the facts. Again, I'm more than happy to talk about the issue at some length, but I do believe that, and we did work with Tom Casperson's office, with Marty down at Tom Casperson's office, to get the right language for this resolution. So it's not just a feel-good resolution. This is a resolution that is actually has some meaningful information and requests. So I do believe that it's still, as part of the greater community, our responsibility to to work with everybody on opposing this issue, obviously, and this resolution, I think, is a start. There's going to be more, though, because this is a federal issue. There's currently 20 complaints filed by the Michigan Public Service Commission at FERC, and you know, that FERC is going to have to start ruling on some of these issues, and so, you know, we're going to have to be engaged at a federal level, you know, in order for this to be something that where we get our voice in. So we do have, I can tell you that it's not just UP legislators, I mean, there's legislators from all over the state are now concerned about what's going on up here. It is a Michigan issue. They're looking for a Michigan solution, and the governor's office is very engaged. Even the Michigan Public Service Commission is engaged. So it is above us into the federal level, and we do have support, but so I'll field questions at this point.
Didn't Brighton Township pass something similar to this, their last meeting?
Well, Brighting is actually going to have this on their agenda in another week.
No.
Yeah, this is a totally new resolution. Okay. The county passed something at their meeting.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of.
But we looked at it and we discussed it, and we felt that we needed to have something that was a little more direct. Okay. And that's where we engaged Tom's office and got some more direct language.
A little more meaningful, a little less feel good.
Yes, exactly. Not just we're mad, do something. We actually have, you know, there's some actual direction in the ordinance or in the resolution.
I think we should be advertising to those just outside our borders what our electric rates are only going up. See if they want to have us take them over.
Well,
is this resolution going to be on our website?
We can put the resolution on the website, yes.
And it would be available at the City Hall, I would assume, that if
That's
anyone
correct.
else wants to see it.
That's correct.
Well, I'm all for the resolution, but I think we're wasting our time. We can't get anything done with the state, and now we're trying to fight the federal government and FERC and these bureaucracies. I'm all for the resolution, but I said it's a waste of time.
At least on this one, we have the state backing us. For whatever good that might do, but we at least have that now.
I make a motion we pass resolution 2014-33.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep. Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or agenda item or on any topic whatsoever? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. Okay, seeing none. Dr. Hayes.
We had a few comments. I didn't make the last meeting. I had a wonderful trip, but I did watch it on TV, and a few things bothered me. One was that Mr. David Ball was asked to make comments several times, and I couldn't hear what he was saying. I think anyone who speaks in the audience should come up, or we should get a portable microphone, because I think what's said at the meetings all ought to be understood by anyone watching it. So I think tonight you had Mr. Kangas come up to the microphone. I was glad to see that, but Mr. Ball should have come up to the microphone last meeting. So I think we need to work on that. I also was interested in Lee's comments about a pile of plastic bottles out at the compost site, which hopefully will get going on our security cameras and a whole system, and we can start catching people and finding people and for things such as that.
That's part of phase 1, so
Right.
it won't be.
And I just said, hopefully we'll get into that. And I had a question, is the Norway Spring part of the DDA?
Yes.
And I'd like to make that comment. I've made this comment, I think, every year for the past 3 or 4 years, that the city of Norway needs to do something with that spring. If Norway Springs are no longer using the water out of there, maybe we ought to work on purchasing it from them and using that or expanding those facilities. But That can be a very big tourist draw to have fresh artesian well water, free artesian well water. And I think it would be a big boon to the city. And I'd also like to have people have access to it year-round rather than have it shut off. And several comments were made at the last meeting about when we're going to shut it off. I also, in the packet today, there was comments that stuffers are going to go out in the electric bills. We have to make sure that they also go out to the citizens of the city who do not get electric bills from the city, who are outside our electric system. And I guess we won't make any further comments on that since we're asked not to. I also wanted to ask, what has the date been set? And if not, it should be set for the Quaska Centennial. Has there been an actual date set for that yet, or is we're still thinking about that? And I think that's something that hopefully will be done in the next month or so, because I think a lot of planning is going to have to be done, and so we have to have a date before any other planning. That's the comments I had.
Okay, Lee.
Tomorrow's the election, and I know it's going to hurt the post office because I'll get half the mail of what I've been getting. And I'm be glad that I won't be getting phone calls, sometimes 3 and 4 a day. The only guy that didn't call me was probably President Obama. Otherwise, I don't have anything.
Chris.
Going through the memo, there was minutes from the North Alert ambulance, and there was a comment in there about them looking for a new building.
North Alert's going to, they purchased the property that's directly across, the lot that's directly across the highway from the fire hall. They are going to be constructing a new building probably sometime in the starting in the early summer, late spring, early summer. Right now, they're getting design ideas from the crew, from the board. They're going to go up for engineering, and then they're going to bid the building.
The reason for them building a new building, that was the concerning part for me. And from the minutes, it sounded like they were getting pushed out of the fire hall more than going on their own.
The issue right now is the fire hall only has 3 long bays. They have 3 long bays and they have a couple of short bays. The current tanker fits in a short bay. In the long bays are the fire truck, the ambulance, and the trailer for the 6-wheel ATV that the ambulance purchased as a rescue vehicle. It's got a patient carrier on the back. When the new tanker that we're going to be purchasing comes in, it cannot fit in the short bay where the current tanker is. So that requires the 6-wheeler trailer to be removed from the fire hall because the tanker has precedent over the trailer. Ambulance has decided they do not want the trailer parked outside. The machine itself would fit in the short bay, and with the old tanker coming to DPW, there is room for the machine itself to stay in the fire hall. The trailer will not fit, it's too long. And like I said, and then from that, ambulance decided the best course of action for them was to construct their own building that's got long enough bays so they can park the trailer inside. There's a lot of ideas right now, nothing's been nailed down as to what the plans are.
I see a lot of the benefit of North Alert and the fire department being together in that building with some of the shared resources, a lot of the funding that North Alert was getting, and then basically sharing that with the fire department. And I guess my worry is that we're going to lose access to those resources. I know there'll still be a relationship there, but that direct access to resources, training, some of the different equipment that they had that gave the fire department access to, with them being in a separate building, will no longer be available. And it doesn't seem like we worked, and I could be wrong, I don't know the full extent of it, but it doesn't seem like we worked very hard to keep them. What their demands were, I'm not really sure. I know we also collect rent from them, and that's going to have to take into consideration for budgeting for the fire department as well, I would imagine.
really, the issue came down to the space. The two combined have outgrown the amount of room that we had, especially, like I said, in long bays. The tanker has to take precedent. You're not gonna park the tanker outside
Well, yeah, I understand.
and over a trailer. And from the fire department's point of view, no, the tanker goes in. The ambulance decided they did not want their trailer outside. And they were willing to spend a lot of money to park the trailer inside.
Okay.
And they have the money for that, Jeremy?
Yes. They have the money in reserves, in cash, in CDs and reserves to, depending on what the bids come in on the building, but likely cover the whole thing. Land and building.
Have they ever looked into expanding the current fire hall?
That was talked about at one point. I don't know how far that got.
No one's ever-
Kind of sad to say though, there's factions on both crews that will not get along. And it's sad to say it, but that's the truth. There's parts of both fire crew and ambulance crew that will not get along with the other one. And overall, it may be better for both to be separated. They're still gonna be they're gonna be right across the road. The training facilities, as I understand it right now, it's still gonna be in the fire hall. The training room we have in the fire hall is gonna be there. It's gonna be joint. It's gonna be used by both. That's as far as I know at this point.
Well, Jeremy, to me, this is a slap in the face for Norway. For all the backing and everything that we did to them, for them, you know, if it was the city, we wouldn't have the thing to begin with, because the city's the one that put the whole thing together. The bottom line is, you got a bunch of kids that if they can't play ball, they're gonna take their bat and ball, go home.
I would
Now,
agree.
just wait. And the second thing is, they got too much money. Why, if they get down, they got that kind of money in the bank, remember, am I right or wrong, Ray, is this a nonprofit deal?
Yeah, they're a nonprofit authority.
You know, when they got, I can understand them have enough money in the bank to buy a new ambulance when it's needed, so it doesn't have to go back out to their tax rate. But have they ever considered lowering the taxes on that thing? Up there? Why do they have to spend every penny that they get, or put it in the bank?
Lowering the
Now,
taxes was discussed for this year.
Next year, or whenever this issue comes back up, for a renewal on taxes up there, what happens if it doesn't pass? Then where you sit? Have they considered that?
Operationally, they would have to make adjustments.
This is a bunch of kids that want their way all the time, and that's all they're looking for. And shame on them, and it's a shame on us too. This should have been brought to the council long, long time ago, not just a month ago. Or last week when you told me, that's the first I heard of it. It's a dirty shame that this has happened. That's all I got to say of the ambulance.
Anything else, Chris?
Yeah. I see they patched that hole in Main Street, Ray. They did a real nice job of it too. Thanks a lot. One question I got, in your minutes there, Ray, no, not in your minutes. In the minutes from the golf course, I see that they want the city to haul sand free of charge. Is this something common? It seems like anytime we need to do stuff for any of the recreation department or any other department in the city, we charge it out. And I see in the minutes that the city will haul sand for nothing.
Yeah, depends, you know, we have different interdepartmental charging, but no, typically we don't. Typically we just work together between departments. You know, this is for the golf side, not the clubhouse side. So, you know, one of the things I told them is that, you know, we just aren't going to break loose of what we're doing and and start hauling that sand, you know, this is probably not gonna happen until next spring. But really, this is Joe and Kurt working together, you know, so it doesn't affect any other operations.
Well, it seems like any other department wants sand, that we always charge them, or charge them for the truck rental, or charge, you know, charge against each department. And I'm kind of surprised that nothing was said in there, that it's just said, that, well, the city will haul it for nothing for us, and so, geez. Why are we doing stuff for them for nothing when we charge individual
Well,
departments for stuff?
It's kind of, we're losing money at the golf course, we charge them, it's gonna be the general fund anyway, you know, so I mean, we're trying to work together to bring, you know, we need to bring people back out to the course. I mean, it's, you know, if you don't have the sand traps done right, then you don't have, you know, the course looking good. You lose more people golfing, it gets in a worse shape, it's just, you know, it's just part of the progression.
Well, I agree with you, Ray, but I don't agree with you.
I don't know what else to say.
No, I know, but I mean, you know, why should we feel sorry for them because they're losing money? I mean, they're running a sinking ship, and they don't want to change to do anything different.
No.
And
George, it's us.
And we're basically supporting them.
No, George, it's us. This is the city side of the golf course. This isn't the golf commission. This is the city side of the golf course, so it's us. I'm feeling sorry for me, you know, because I'm running the golf course. So,
Whatever, that's fine. I just, question, that's all.
okay.
That's all I have.
One thing I will touch on, just the comments with the ambulance, with the fund balance. The fund balance was being built to be able to purchase a new rig. That's what the original purpose of building up the balance was. Last year at budget time for them, that we did discuss lowering the rate, and it was gonna be looked at this year to lower the tax rate. I don't believe that's gonna happen now with the expenditures for the building. We're gonna have to see where the funds lie after that's done. But that was discussed last year and coming into this year's budget.
Are they, I mean, my question to you, you're sitting on the board, Jeremy, is, are they gonna be self-supporting if this, if the tax, doesn't go through?
I believe they can make it work. I'm not positive on that, off the top of my head. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'd have to look at the numbers. I believe
You
they
better start thinking about it, because when this gets out, things that people are gonna look at it differently.
Their fund
I mean-
balance is public
I mean,
record?
definitely, everybody
What
wants
is
to
their
keep
fund
it down
balance?
and see it survive, but not when they're just doing stuff to spite their face.
CDs is about $250,000.
Say it a little louder so that people will be able to catch it on the TV.
I did. CDs are running about $250,000 in CDs.
Thank you.
I have no other comment. Mary? Trish? Brent?
Nope.
Ray?
I have nothing.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Support?
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.